Hello, lifelong learners. Today I'll talk you through all the considerations, pros and cons in respect to a very important decision you'll need to make when you commence or resume studying this autumn. Whether to use Microsoft or Apple. As always, my content is specifically made for neurodivergent and highly introverted adults, adult students in that case. However, I believe specifically in this video, the tips that I'm giving and the considerations really apply to all students. My name is Julia. I'm a neurodivergent German psychologist and lifelong learner. I'm also going to start studying again in September in my semi-virtual master program of positive psychology and coaching. This video is part of my video series and playlist Back to Uni in 2025. There is a new video coming out once a week or once every 2 weeks if something happens in real life. And I've linked a 4-minute series introduction and overview video in the description below. There you can also find the link to save the playlist to your watch later section if you want to. So if you have already decided to use Apple, you may want to wait for the end of this video when I will be sharing some great tips and how to make the switch from Microsoft to Apple a lot easier. So you can use an iMac or a MacBook almost in the same way you were using Microsoft before. I used Microsoft when I started my bachelor degree. And halfway through, I switched completely to Apple because I just enjoy writing on the Apple iPad with hand and with a keyboard. And in general, using the iPad as a study tool because by now it is almost a laptop, but it still has the advantages of using apps in a way that you would on a smartphone. So it kind of brings together the best of both worlds. So you may be asking why either or, can't I use both? So yes, you can, and to a certain extent you might need to, because universities usually offer students a free or cheaper subscription to Microsoft Office. And of course the teachers work in Microsoft Office products because it's just cheaper than Apple. The reason why I strongly recommend to use one set of tools and the cloud and not a mix of all is because you will save a lot of time and nerves in searching for things, organizing things and having things at hand when and where you need them. It really makes a huge difference. Specifically for neurodivergent people, it's important because it massively reduces the cognitive load that your brain has to handle when you have everything in one place. There are a few things that you need to know. Maybe you just start uni this September and this information is important to know as a preparation for making this decision. One, I've already mentioned that universities use Microsoft products, and you will also get Microsoft products in some unis as a cheaper or free subscription, but only in the Microsoft space. So the MS Office suite, for example. The biggest challenge really is the compatibility issues for the different templates that you will have to use and exchange with your professor. So what do I mean by that? You will have to most likely make presentations, Word documents, Excel files, work in Excel files, and of course you can open all of these in Apple Notes, in Apple Pages and Apple Numbers. And you can export from those to a Word document or an Excel file, so that works. But the formatting doesn't always stick 100%. And that is basically the biggest issue. There is a workaround for this. So you can use the free Google Office products. Specifically, when you get an Excel sheet from your tutor that you have to read, of course you can open that Excel file in Apple Numbers, but the other way around is more the problem. So you have to export a file that you created in Apple Numbers to Microsoft Excel. But because of the fact that those programs are not exactly the same, obviously some of the formatting, and in case of an Excel file, some of the macros that you might have in it might get warped or lost. You can always use Google, the Google Excel equivalent from the Google Office products. I forgot what Google calls it now, as an in-between. This is really only a problem in certain university programs. So if you are going to study something that is more word heavy, like philosophy or literature or so, that shouldn't be a problem. If, however, you are faced continuously with having to do in-depth Excel sheets with calculations and macros in it, then this could become a problem. I would personally ask your university for advice if you have any worries around that. And specifically the IT department, if there is such a thing from your university, because usually the normal student counselors don't know these technical details to that depth. So what are the pros of going full Apple? Because there are a lot of benefits when you decide to go full into the Apple environment. First and foremost, of course, is the Apple Cloud. When you have an iPhone and you are using also an iPad and maybe a laptop, a MacBook, and you are using the Apple Cloud, everything syncs automatically and immediately. It doesn't matter which app it is. You don't even need the cloud of that specific app. So there are a lot of apps, like some note-taking apps, that offer you their own cloud to give you the possibility to have what you've done in that app sync across your devices. But with Apple Cloud you don't need any of those, which means you can save the subscriptions to those apps in some cases, because in the Apple Cloud all your devices and everything you do in them and in the different apps syncs automatically. And that is a huge advantage. There is also a lot to be said for the safety and data privacy of Apple. It's from the available operating systems by far the safest and the most responsible in dealing with your data privacy. And I could give you a lot of very in-depth examples for that, but that would become too technical. It's safe to say that I really know what I'm talking about from my previous career in digital marketing. The Apple operating system in itself is much easier to operate and to learn once you get into it a little bit, and it's a lot faster. So the best example is if you are searching for a specific file. In Microsoft Office, searching for anything in the Windows Explorer is a real pain, and it takes ages, and it doesn't always find it. At the most it finds the file somewhere. With Apple you can search for the files, not only for the files across all applications and platforms that you are using in the Apple environment and across your devices, but also in many cases for specific words and phrases used in those files. And the search in itself is a matter of seconds. That saves a humongous amount of time if you are often searching for stuff. The next big advantage is the Apple's way to deal with passwords and logins. They too sync across all devices, and you can choose for each website you've created an account, for each application, for each and everything where you are asked for setting up a login. You can choose to save these in the Apple Password app and connect them with the way you log into Apple, so either thumbprint or face recognition, and then Apple knows this the next time you want to log in there, and you don't need to remember any password. And the way you recover something is actually intelligent. Not just trying to be intelligent like in Microsoft, but it actually is intelligent and swift. It recognizes when you can't use that second authentication method because you are on this device, and this device, for example, doesn't have face recognition, so it intelligently switches the way to authenticate yourself depending on your circumstances. It's a massive relief. Once you've set it up properly, the password and the password safe, it's very secure, and all you need is the way you authenticate yourself at that device. So on the iPhone maybe face recognition, and on the laptop maybe with your fingerprint. Huge relief to not have to worry about that. The next thing, the app Goodnotes, which is extremely popular among students, works on Microsoft by now, but it was really made for the iPad, and it is just the most amazing note-taking app on the iPad. And Notability, the other note-taking app, works only on Apple. I use both. I use Notability specifically for being in lectures, because you can actually look at the PowerPoint presentation that your professor is showing you at the moment, and then he's talking through the slides. You can record what he is saying with his approval, of course, and while he says something, you may write something into the slide or just mark the slide where he's talking about, and later you can look at any slide, click on what you wrote down in there, and it automatically jumps to the audio recording of what your professor said about that specific slide. No search necessary. I have all my lectures from the last 2 or 3 semesters recorded in that way, and even now I can go to a specific slide, and if I want to hear what how the professor explained what is on that slide, I just click on the slide and hear what he said. So, or he or she or they or whatever. Again, this is really amazing. And Notability, Goodnotes has a recording feature as well, but this trick that it jumps immediately to that point of that note being taken by clicking on it, it doesn't have that yet. So that's why I'm still using Notability, which works only on Apple. And that's specifically important also for neurodivergent people who learn better by hearing than by seeing. This is a big benefit because, of course, you can speed up the words, the audio track, or slow it down, just like in YouTube. So what you are hearing and learning fits the velocity of your brain in that moment in time. Again, a huge benefit, and reduces a lot of cognitive load. And then, of course, the cross-device copy and paste capability. So you can actually mark some text or a link or whatever on your iPhone and click on copy. And then you go to your laptop or your tablet, click where you want to have that, and click on paste, and it's there. So the copy paste, if you use the Apple Cloud, works cross devices. Exchanging a file is incredibly difficult on Microsoft. Yes, there are ways to, most people just fall back to emailing the file to another person, but then of course there are email limits in size and so on. What you can do in Apple is you just AirDrop it. The AirDrop function in Apple across devices, even all your own devices, it's incredibly fast. Apple just makes it so much easier to work, and it reduces cognitive load in the way it is designed and in the way you can use it. Yeah, so those are the big pros that I love about being in the Apple environment. There are a few cons. If you switch to Apple, you have to relearn a few things. But if you use it on a daily basis, you just watch a few YouTube videos that I will link in the description. And then you can use Apple the same way with all the functionality that you have on Microsoft as well. It might be a different key combination, but you get used to it. In fact, your brain gets used to it within 3 days of using it. It's not too different though. Even the key combinations, most of them are also the same. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. The learning curve is not steep at all. Of course, Apple is more expensive. But I have to say, if you calculate against that, the amount of time that you save and the amount of subscription or additional fees that you save because you use the iCloud for everything. Yes, Apple is expensive in the initial purchase, but I think a lot of that additional money you get back later by saving tons of time, and also a little bit of money in not having to buy extra services in the Microsoft environment, cloud services specifically, that you don't need in the Apple environment because it just works. It's just there and it works. The most important thing to consider is whether every tool or application that you need to use as part of your university degree has a working equivalent in the Apple environment. So as I said, advanced Excel sheets could be a problem. SPSS, the statistical software, runs on Apple. The citation softwares, not all of them have an integration into Apple Pages, the equivalent of Word. But Endnote does. So Endnote, with the citation software Endnote, you can use cite as you write. But Endnote costs something. But it's a very, very good program, I have to say. Otherwise, you can still use Zotero on Apple, but then you need to copy paste your literature, your citations into your thesis or whatever you are writing. So it does work, it's just a more manual thing in that case. So ask your university which programs you need to use as part of your study program. And if you are in doubt with any of those programs, usually they say on their websites if they can be used in an Apple environment and to which extent. There are a few things that you should know, some tips and tricks when using Apple. I already mentioned the videos that are made for people who are switching from Microsoft to Apple. I will link a few. It's important to define which app opens which file at the beginning. It's also important to set up Finder, that's the equivalent to Microsoft Windows Explorer, to set up Finder in the right way in its view when you open it the first time, because then it looks almost exactly like the Windows Explorer, but with more functions. There are also a lot of good shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts, that make working on an Apple. So to summarize, you can by all means switch from Microsoft to Apple also as a student. If you do it though, it's better to do it completely and not just halfway through, because the moment you have to remember not only where to find that file, but whether it is on a Microsoft device, your Microsoft device or your Apple device, or in this cloud or that cloud, it becomes really exhausting, and you might end up having something there while you are at university and you need it at another device and you can't access it. So if you switch, it's better to switch completely and talk to your university's IT department and look at your requirements for your course, which applications you will be using and needing, and how they work on an Apple environment. So, I hope this little video was helpful to you. It is a more technical minded video, but there are a few things which are really good to know in this context, and know before you make the decision how you want to organize your IT in your university program. And I wish you all the best for that, and hope to see you in the next video in this series. Until then, lifelong learners, bye bye.